Alright guys, welcome back to the podcast. Oh man, I don't know, I'm not gonna make a song. It would be fun to make a song. I'm driving, I'm in the last 30 minutes of getting to this hotel. I'm tired, I've had a long week, I've had a long day, but I'm not trying to talk about all that because I just did. I wanted to talk about sex positive, body positive content. Now, I don't even know at this point when I'm starting to talk if I'm going to list specific content. I'll think about it. I'll have to think it through. I might put it in the description, but I don't know. I don't want to be offensive to people, because, I mean, I watch what I watch. I consume the stuff I consume, so, you know, I've probably mentioned this more than not. I mean, for people who've either been listening for a long time, or who have recently been tuning in, or who personally know me, you know that I consume a lot of LGBT content, and so the majority of my, you know, frame where I'm coming from when I'm talking about these topics is usually from that point of view. Like, it's kind of interesting. I don't think I was really, I don't even know how to. Yeah, I'm just gonna, if you don't want to listen to this, then you might just want to just wait for the next episode, because if you're gonna get offended, if you don't like topics about sexuality, this one is not gonna be for you. But you know, I like to talk about it because I find it actually a positive thing to talk about it. Like, not maybe like incessantly talking about it. Like, I definitely have hobbies and interests that don't involve sex. I'm not like always like talking about it or like doing it or whatever. Like, I have, you know, it's a portion of my life, but it's not all of my life. But I know a lot of times, you know, for people who might not be too familiar with LGBT people, you know, I think there's a little bit, sometimes, I don't want to blame everybody, but there's maybe like a small percentage of people that I've come across that kind of feel like that's like the main topic of interest absolutely all the time. But I don't even want to make it sound like I don't like talking about that kind of stuff. Like, I do. Like, I joke about stuff all the time. Like, I don't know. If you get me when I'm in kind of like a silly mood, I will be just like talking about all sorts of stuff. Like, and it's not like for my mother's ears. Like, it's just all sorts of stuff. But I mean, I try to be considerate of other people and go at their pace. Like, I don't really too much like actively just like ask people like, hey, like, do you like talking about this kind of sexual topic just like out of the blue? Like, but you know, if I'm with people and they're already joking about something, I'm gonna contribute. You know, like if I'm with friends and we're just like talking about stuff, I'm gonna contribute. Or if I'm with friends and I notice that they don't really want to be like engaged with whatever's going on, I can kind of see that, you know. Like, I've been places where it's like, you know, there's people stripping around, they're like go-go dancers, and like, you know, it's perfectly fine that people sometimes aren't really there for that. They don't really want to see it. It's not really what they came there for. And, you know, they kind of might not be comfortable in that environment, especially when it's like, we just came here for a drink and now there's somebody like shaking their ass at your table. It's kind of like, okay, I get it. If that's not really what you're interested in, like, it's fine. But, you know, I can kind of notice when it's like, oh, like, some people are like, oh, this is surprising but fun surprising. And then some people are like, this is surprising, like, this is uncomfortable surprising. Like, I can kind of pick up on that. And then I remember And then it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to purposely go to something that's like that, I wouldn't probably invite those people that I know are kind of uncomfortable with it. And then there's other people that, like, of course, you know, they're always welcome, and they'll probably be the ones telling me that that's what's going on. So, I don't know. Like, it really just depends. But, I mean, I hope that if you don't want to listen to this content, then please, I hope if you're too young, then please, I'll maybe make an age-appropriate version, but I don't really know what's age-appropriate because I don't have kids, and I don't know what would be appropriate for 18 and, well, maybe 18 and, like, under 18, but not, like, children. Like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever had, like, a sex talk with a kid too much. Like, when I used to work in my 20s, when I had a job working at a school, there were a couple kids that were probably, like, I think they were, like, second graders at the time or something. And I worked at that school for a couple of years, I think. They were either, like, somewhere between second grade and, like, third or fourth grade. I can't remember. But there were a couple kids that I used to, like, play with at the batting cage. Like, there's, like, batting cages, and I would, like, they would just, like, play baseball, but then, like, there weren't enough kids to, like, play baseball. And, like, I was, like, a playground monitor type staff. And so I would just, like, you know, throw pitches for them to, like, hit the ball or whatever, like, and they, you know, like, I got along with the kids because, like, they kind of just knew, like, if they did something wrong, I'm going to tell their parents, and then they're going to have to be on a timeout, or if it's really that bad, they're going to go to the principal. But other than that, it's, like, they were respectful, and I would kind of tell them, like, if they were being disrespectful, even though, because I was younger, like, I was in my 20s, and they knew that, and so they would kind of see you as, like, the younger fun staff. So sometimes it would be hard for them to, like, keep, like, normal boundaries with you. You know, like, random stuff, like, little kindergartners, like, they want to, like, get a piggyback ride, or, like, some, like, random little, like, you know, little kids, like, how they are and stuff. And, like, you're just like, dude, like, I mean, no. But, I mean, yeah, just stuff like that, where it's, like, you would just tell them, like, no, like, you know, I work here, I'm a worker, we're not really allowed to, like, do that, you know, but, you know, if you want to get piggyback rides from your classmates, that's fine, but if it's not bothering them, but, you know, I'm working, I have to watch the other kids, I can't just be, like, you know, doing that, and if you fall and get hurt or something, then, you know, of course, you know, that's going to be a problem, so let's just not, you know, like, stuff like that. But it's like, yeah, there were these kids that would kind of ask me a little bit about, like, where do babies come from kind of topics and all that kind of stuff, and I'd just be like, you know, like, I would tell them as much as I felt like I could, but the weird thing was, like, there was nothing weird about them asking, but the weird thing for me was that I went to that school, and I knew kind of, like, with the religion, because I was raised in that religion, I knew from that school what was considered appropriate. I knew from the religion what's kind of considered appropriate conversation surrounding these topics. Like, I think I've mentioned before that I went to church almost without fail. Like, I don't think I even skipped 10 days of church that I can ever remember, like, between, like, when I started going to church at, like, age 5 in LA. I mean, we went to church in Missouri before, but I don't remember, like, how often we went, like, because we didn't really have friends there. Like, I remember because I had friends that I would actually, like, play with on a regular basis in LA. And so I remember going to church young, and, you know, we were always at church, and it's not like a flex. Like, I'm not, like, saying it to, like, say that I think it's, like, that anybody's better than anybody for going to church. It was just, culturally, that's what we did. You know, some people with their families go to movies every Sunday. I had a friend, I think every Sunday morning, him and his mom and his brother would go see a movie. And they probably did that as much as we went to church. Like, honestly, they did it, like, every single day, every single Sunday morning. And so, yeah, I you know, people have their traditions of things that they do. For us, in our household, it was a religious tradition. We didn't even, I don't know if everyone, I didn't even personally always take it as a religious thing. It was sometimes in my life it was way more of just like, I'm just here to like talk to my friends and like hang out and like go to the beach after church, or like just hang out, and like I liked everybody and I don't mind sitting through sermons, like it wasn't like a big deal, but I wasn't like there to like worship or all the time. Like I was sometimes, and sometimes I wasn't, like, but it was just part of what I did, and I didn't see anything wrong with that. I was just there to just, because that's what we did. We woke up and we went to church. But yeah, I'm just trying to say, like, 10 times, maybe max, that I missed church, if you don't count like going to summer camps that were church camps, so they had church at the camp, or days where we had like, people would camp at this park where they'd have church at the park, or like when we'd go backpacking, like on my 21st birthday, we went backpacking over a weekend and we had like a little service there, or on mission trips, we'd have like church with the people who lived locally at the Adventists that were there, and it was all in Spanish, and like we didn't really know what was going on, but we would go to church all the time, and that was normal. The people I was raised around, it was normal to like not be missing church all the time. It was just normal, like just like most people eat breakfast every morning. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, some people eat breakfast, some people don't. Some people always eat breakfast, some people don't. Like, like that's just, it's pretty much the same. That's kind of the same way I feel about it. It's like that amount of sentiment. It's like, like I'm not like judging people who do or don't go. I'm just saying I went so much, but I went a lot. Probably didn't even miss 10 days total between like kindergarten and like my first year of grad school, maybe. Went every single week. Sometimes even twice a day on Saturdays, or Friday, Saturday. I don't know. Like, sometimes I went to Sunday churches, but I'd always go to Saturday. But yeah, like I went to a lot of freaking church. And at the home church I was raised in, the one that I went to so much, almost without fail, I can remember once in my whole lifetime when they had a sermon on human sexuality and relationships, kind of around like dating, marriage, relationships, kind of. And it was such a vague sermon. I don't know how old I was. I know which building we were in, so I know it was later in my life. And so I kind of just knew, just from observation and just from being in that culture for so long, that if these kids at this church school that likely, I don't remember if they went to the same church as me or not, but I was still going to that church at that time when I was working at that school, and a lot of the parents would go to the church too, and my mom worked at that school. My dad was on the school board of the school, and my parents were friends with like a lot of other parents through the school or through the church or whatever combination. So I knew if I was like saying stuff and like saying something wrong, that that wouldn't be a good situation for me. But I also knew the culture so well that I kind of knew what I could say and what I couldn't say. And I know how I wasn't taught. I don't know, man. I don't want to say I was taught sex through the church. That's not accurate. I wasn't directly taught about sex from my parents. I was more so taught about it collaboratively between myself and a group of friends, that all of us, like, our parents didn't really talk about it much. And of course the church leaders, if you'd ask them questions, they would never really answer you. So that was always useless. So I had friends who had like older siblings, and they were usually the people I could kind of talk to. Like when I was like maybe 6th grade, 7th grade, and they were like teenagers or something, like they were like seniors in high school or something, or like I was in high school and they were like in college. I knew a lot of people like that. a lot of like different generations of people, and so usually I would kind of like be around them when they were like in early dating phases, like, you know, because I had a bestie who had a lot of my bestie's sister had a lot of like kind of like female friends, and they were all like dating all these guys, like not like that, but like they were all like, they would all go out on dates. So I would hang out with him and his sister and her friends and their boyfriends, and just kind of by observation you kind of just figure things out, and then you're kind of like exposed, like I was kind of like exposed to more like, I don't want to say adult conversations, but more like topics that weren't being talked about in my house or at the church or at the school. And then me and my group of friends that were like of my same age range, we would kind of more so talk about things. Or, you know, the internet was like in full force. You know, we were all like engaged with LimeWire back then and all this kind of stuff. So like, you know, we'd circulate like, you know, videos of different sorts. Like, it wasn't always just like porn movies and stuff, but it was stuff that was definitely, our parents were not really wanting us to be watching that kind of stuff. I don't think they even knew. Like, it was kind of funny because we were, we were all kind of, I hope the map isn't like coming into this video. I know the earbuds have like a little bit of a speaker on them, so I apologize if you can hear my map, but I'm trying not to look at my phone while I'm talking on here and driving. Okay, map, okay, we know. So yeah, I think that's mostly how I learned the majority of things that actually were important. I don't think I learned anything of importance other than biology, like the biological purpose of sexual organs. Like, that's kind of what we learned in school. Gay people didn't exist in those textbooks. It was just, you know, don't be gay. And then other than that, like, talk to the pastor if you're gay. That was as far as you would get with that conversation. And then, you know, I had some friends at a young age that were kind of out, and everybody just, like, it wasn't like a topic of conversation. Like, nobody said don't talk about it, but nobody talked about it. Like, nobody was asking them questions, or they weren't asking questions about like their sexuality or anything. Like, everyone was just like nodding their head and smiling, you know, and like going along with the textbook, the health textbook that had like the internal organs of people. Like, that's all it had in there. I'm pretty sure that health books nowadays have more in them, but I don't know. I should probably go back and read like a textbook that's meant for like 5th graders, 10th graders, like just to see kind of like what's out there. But I remember like going into, I think it was 5th grade, we were like so excited to go into 5th grade because that's the grade that you learn the sex topics. And then I remember like when you start the class, like you're so like, I don't know, like you get the book, and then, you know, you get all your textbooks, but then you already know it's the health book and it's the biology book. And so and then like the religion book would have something, but it wouldn't have like anatomy pictures. It would just tell you all the stuff that's wrong to not do according to the religion. It wouldn't even tell you like in detail what's wrong. Like, you would have to kind of like figure that part out for yourself, just from like trial and error of like saying or doing things and getting caught saying or doing things, and somebody telling you don't say or do that. Like, the books didn't even like tell you not to do it. It would just be like, pretty much stay away from everything and you'll be safe. But then there is a little bit of wiggle room, but where that wiggle room is like, just basically don't do it. Like, it wasn't like a Shomer Nagia type of culture. Like, it wasn't like ultra like orthodox kind of religious, like from Jews, where they kind of like, if they're Shomer, like they don't like touch each other at all before they're married. Like, it wasn't necessarily like that, But I mean, I definitely knew people who grew up like dating people and they weren't like kissing. Like, that wasn't abnormal to have a relationship like that. And I knew of people who had, you know, their parents make their boyfriend, or usually it was the boyfriend that had to sign, but usually they would make them sign like a contract that they weren't going to have sex with their daughters. Like, that wasn't abnormal either. Like, in mainstream society, I think that's considered extreme, but the society I was raised in, that was not extreme at all. That was like kind of like what you could kind of get away with. Like, there were very strict rules. You weren't really in bedrooms with the opposite sex with the door closed. That wasn't really a thing. I mean, if you're gay, I don't really know how, you know, whatever, like, you know, like, it's kind of like one of these things that's like, okay, like, let's just play by the rules. But yeah, I mean, I mostly was around people who were having conversations that I kind of noticed. I was like, these people aren't bad people. Like, there's nothing that they're totally nice to me. Like, there were, you know how there would always be the older kids that were kind of like jerks to the younger people. And then there were like the ones that were like the cool ones that would just like actually be real with you and like, you know, help you out with stuff, or like, you know, like they might be 21 and they might like, hey, if you want a sip of my beer, you know, just to taste it or whatever. Like, there were those kind of people. Like, they wouldn't like get you in trouble, but like they could keep a secret, you know. They weren't gonna like go and like rat you out to like your folks or whatever, or to like the pastors or whatever the heck. Like, they would keep stuff to themselves. So like, I grew up around a lot of those people. Like, I still know them, but like, we don't really talk like that. Like, we were like kind of like a different generation. So like, they grew up, a lot of them grew up, had kids, a lot of them moved out of state. But I still know of them, but we don't really talk too deeply. Only the ones who kind of live like kind of locally will come across each other every so often and we'll like catch up. But it's like, I don't usually I don't like actively seek out like talking to them unless there's like a reason to, like, other than catching up. Like, I really looked up to them though. Like, there were a lot, I'm not gonna name any of them, but like, y'all know who y'all are. But yeah, they were always cool, you know, like, and they kind of like taught us, like, it was kind of like they would kind of like teach you how to like be like normal, because the church was not helping. But they would kind of teach you, like, it was kind of like, dude, we're in the middle of LA. Like, you can't be like, you have to know how to navigate in a city like that. You can't just be like fully on like 110% this religion and like function in a way that like makes sense. Like, you miss out on relationships with people that way if you really follow all of those rules that the church was laying down in the way that they expected you to be, like, so exclusive of so much stuff that the church is against. You miss out on learning opportunities. You miss out on a lot of adventurous opportunities. You miss out on a lot of stuff, and it's not even an evil type of missing out. Like, you just miss out on it because you're so like trying to do all these other things that are like keeping you so apart from the world per se, like keeping you so distant from it that you're not really engaged in it whatsoever. So you're kind of in your own religious world, but you're not really a part of the other world. And to me, it was always important to be like, I can be a part of this religious world, but I'm still just going to do my own thing and be open about it. Like, I'll play by the rules and I'm not making people uncomfortable and stuff, but it's like, I mean, I'm not running around church with like a pride flag or anything, but it's like, I'm not going to like wear the attire that I have to wear, you know. If it's a certain church that they're not going to let you in because of your dress code, I'm not going to go to that church anyways. And then the more open-minded ones with the more lenient dress codes, I'll definitely go to those lenient churches. And so, but I would still dress my own style. Like, I'm not gonna just like do what's gonna make me uncomfortable, but I'm also not trying to make other people uncomfortable. I'm like, there needs to be a balance here, a little bit of a give and take. But I'll I'll give up a little bit of myself, but not like 100% fully just for the church. Like, I'm not really like that. Like, it you know, me and whatever kind of type of spiritual relationship with any other higher beings that I may believe in and things like that. Like I don't think anything that some person wrote in some book that says that this is how they think everybody needs to live, I don't think that I have to do that. Like, but also I really am very sensitive to other people's religions, and I'm not really trying to like run around like polluting people and stuff. Like that was always for me like one of the hardest things, because I grew up with so many religious friends. And then I would always kind of have friends that weren't religious at all, didn't even know what the religion was. They'd never heard of Adventism. It wasn't like a thing that people knew about. And that's like a whole lifestyle and culture. And I think I was around so many people that I was like, I guess, exposing to the world, like I always felt kind of weird about that, because I was like, well, they're adults and I'm not an exclusive person, so if people want to hang out with me, it's like, I'm not gonna like protect you, like I'm not gonna be like, oh, you can't come with me because we're going to a club and it's on the Sabbath. I'll tell them we're going to a club and it's on a Friday night and it's not a religious club. And they get the picture, and they know there's going to be alcohol and dancing and people, maybe on all sorts of substances. And there's not like prayers and sermons going on there. So if they want to come, they're more than welcome to come. But I'm not going to like, alter my plans to go I'm not going to alter what I'm trying to do with my friends or my plans. Just because, somebody else wants to join the party. It's kind of like, if you're joining the party, you're joining the party that already exists to your own comfort. I'm not going to pressure you to drink or whatever. Like, I'm not going to like, give you shrooms or like tell you to like smoke some weed or whatever. Like, I'm not the kind of person that even offers things to people. Usually, if it's there and you want it, you go get it yourself. Like, but I'm not, I don't mind my religious friends hanging out with me, but it's kind of like, sometimes it's like, really, like, why are you coming out? Like, are you comfortable with this? It's kind of like, I always kind of had a little bit of like caution about that, because I was like, I don't want somebody to think that I'm like leading them into something that they're not trying to get into, and I'm not, like, I feel like people should have enough street smarts and kind of know enough of like, okay, if you need to Uber home and you know how to use an Uber, like, I'm not usually going to be like, I'm leaving the party because I have to take my friend home. Unless it's like my friend, is like a little bit on the too wasted side, and I see that, I want to make sure they got home. That's probably the extent of, where I would kind of be like a little bit, a little babysitting is involved. But if I have to routinely babysit somebody, I'm probably not going to be inviting them out, in all honesty. You usually get 1 or 2 times, and then after that, I'm like, you can't control yourself, so we cannot do this. Or you can go do this with somebody else, because usually when I go out, I'm not trying to like babysit. So, yeah, so yeah. So that's kind of like how I was like socialized into things. I was around people who were able to kind of balance the religion with like the real world, and like able to kind of function in a way that, they could still get the education they wanted, get the jobs they wanted, wouldn't be like totally limited. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being religious or like very, very religious and completely separated out from the world, but I do think that should be an individual decision. It shouldn't be somebody else making that decision for somebody else or pressuring them to do it. Just like I don't think somebody who isn't doing religious things should be pressuring a person to do things against their religion. I don't think it should go either way. I don't think people should be pressuring people in any way. But anyways, so yeah, that's kind of how I was like socialized into things, I guess I would say. Like, my parents were of no help, and the church was of no help. As far as like, I mean, I'd say like the basics. As far as the school and the church and the basics, they kind of like, you kind of knew how to get pregnant, I guess. Like, that is like mostly what you knew. I mean, you didn't really know maybe like the mechanics of how to do it necessarily. Like, there was no skill based in any of things. It was more like, this is like the basics of what you put where for this to happen, and then if this other thing happens, then you'll have potential to have a baby. Like, it, and then we learned a lot. We probably learned more about the cycles of the stages of what is it? The stages of like baby, what is it called? Like when they're like in the womb, like I forgot what the word is, but like we learned a lot about those stages. There were like multiple chapters on that, and just like a little bit of like the other stuff. But yeah, that's kind of how I was kind of generally introduced to things, was mostly hanging out with people older than I was. And I don't know if I even really was like thinking that through until I started like talking about it. I was like, oh yeah, like I did have people that were like talking about these things, but they weren't my age range, like necessarily all the time. Like, me and my friends weren't like teaching each other. It wasn't like that. But it was like older friends. We had people that were our friends that were older age people. They weren't old, but they were older than we were. So, dude, it's so dark over here. So yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah. So it's like the longest drive ever. Oh my gosh. I'm driving to National City. It's like a little south of where I'm used to driving. So this feels like it's taking so much longer. But yeah. So yeah, that's mostly how I learned things. And I kind of started noticing, that just because people knew of these things or were doing sexual things or had like a lot of like knowledge about it, didn't mean that they were like bad people. Like the people that I hung out with that were older, they were actually like pretty protective. Like, they never let us get in any trouble. They would actually answer your questions if you had questions about stuff. Like, they would actually answer them in enough detail that you could like figure it out, like, or know like what to do or not to do. Like, they wouldn't like treat things in such an awkward way where you were just like, what? Like, I still don't think I know what they're saying. But then they were also, because of like the time period that I was like being raised, like oh my gosh, what is wrong with that car? Dude, they're like scraping on the floor. Because of the time period, you know, like, people weren't really talking about all kinds of sexual topics. Like, there was still more of a taboo towards, like, LGBT stuff. Gay marriage wasn't legal. Like, there was a lot that just, like, wasn't quite as it is now. Like, we were kind of in a different time, basically. But I'm almost where I need to go, so I'm just gonna stop recording now, and I'll continue this once I check in, because I need to focus.